What is up, everyone? We are in Fremont, down the street from the mothership, aka the old headquarters for Tesla and where it all really began. We are at Unplugged Performance with Derek, who has actually some really exciting, a big announcement today. If you're familiar with the Unplugged brand, you are going to be excited, especially if you live in the Bay Area. So I'm going to leave it to Derek to kind of tell us what he's doing and what the big announcement is.
That's right. So everybody, now Unplugged Performance is open here in Fremont, California.
So awesome.
Now, yeah, right. And so, I mean, Unplugged's been around for 10 years. Actually, they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary, November of 2023. But yeah, and so I think it made sense to get a Fremont location, I think, to bring Unplugged closer to Tesla. The Tesla community in the North Bay, I think, is pretty strong. And I mean, with Tesla owners Silicon Valley, it's like the largest Tesla owners club in the world. And I don't even think there's even a club close to this in LA, where Unplugged was founded. So I think it really makes sense to have it here, supporting those owners, and also here supporting Tesla. In fact, yeah, like he said, we're down the street. We wanted to maintain that closeness where, Unplugged was founded next door to the Hawthorne Design Studio, SpaceX, the Boring Company. And I wanted to keep that similar here. So we had that consistency where we're always kind of neighbors with Tesla. And obviously my background being Tesla for the last 8 years, I was really passionate about doing this. So I think it made sense to go this route.
Well, tell us a little bit about what exactly are you going to be doing in Fremont? How is your store, what are you going to be having at your store? What type of work can get done here? And really, what's your vision for this area?
Right. I think, a lot of it is carryover from Unplugged in LA. A lot of those similar services, whether it's like aero, suspension, wheels, tires, alignments, brakes, all the usual suspects. But then we also, want to dabble into some aftermarket like modifications for Tesla that are kind of out of the box, like with Dark Helmet and with Bionic Phoenix, and getting into some race car building and some custom one-off stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen, the military car they did down at Unplugged in LA, where a customer came in. It was a Model S P100D. He wanted the entire thing built out like an aircraft with rivets. Completely customized with rivets, and he actually had like 2 60 cal machine gun replicas on the hood. It was the wildest car I've ever seen in person. I mean, it was the coolest thing ever. And Unplugged did that. I mean, you would never know it was Unplugged that did it, but they did. It was pretty awesome. So kind of getting into some of that custom stuff, I think in the future, that would be something that's something that excites me at least. So yeah, I think that'd be really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, well, Unplugged, I mean, you guys have a ruthless reputation for just quality work, great products, and really what you're also just doing for the community by really bringing, performance to the next level, especially for electric vehicles. I mean, I think, there's really no one else pioneering and really taking things to the next level, whether it's the Nuremberg Ring or, Pikes Peak to Tesla Corsa events, which is, I went to one last year, my first time. I took my Model X, put it out on the track, which was a ton of fun. But, I think it's really awesome that we have one of the most dense populations of Teslas in the world in the Silicon Valley. And so it's important to make sure that, we have stores like this, not only with great products, but great services too.
Right. Yeah, that's something I really pride us on, is that, with my background, the background of my technicians, the support we have here being next door to Tesla, but also the closeness with my contacts within the engineering team. And it's like, it's just a phone call away. We can get that extra support that maybe gives us an advantage over some others. But I feel like, especially for Tesla owners, there needs to be some options. And I feel like Tesla service shouldn't not be the only option. So I think going forward, it makes sense to have some more options for customers to where they don't have to go to Tesla service. I mean, you look at any other car, right? You can go to any shop. You don't necessarily have to go to Tesla service and be at their mercy, but yes, they can provide a good service, but I think, with the wait times and now with staff reductions and things like that, I think it kind of opens the door where we can come in and kind of help with that.
Yep.
And kind of supplement, at least kind of keep that, you know, the customer level a little bit higher where it should be for a premium vehicle. So that's the hope, I think, you know, going in the future. And
yeah, and Tesla service is great, but it's also sometimes there's a wait, especially if it's non-emergency. And so to be able to call your shop and get certain things done, or at least even get your expert knowledge on that, and even being able to troubleshoot, it's a huge deal. I was blessed to go down to Unplugged in Hawthorne to get my wrap done, get the CyberHex rims put on it, and it looks amazing. And now it was actually during that time where they, I think, started to kind of whisper that, hey, there's Unplugged Fremont up here. And so we've already been doing some things. We're going to do some more things today.
That's right.
But it's crazy because I couldn't imagine if something went wrong, like I literally would have to drive 6 hours.
That's right. Yeah.
And but yeah, so it's really nice to have you guys up here, especially I feel like this is kind of an untapped area with just having some, you know, there's other players in the mix up here, but it's important to have other options as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's always going to be other players. Like we're always going to have, like, you know, competition, so to speak. But again, I think that's more value for the customer. And I think, you know, just having a single shop doesn't make sense. I think it makes sense to have multiple shops offering a variety of products, variety of services. It gives people options. And it's no different than like the gas car, like ICE car world, right? So, you know, there's probably 50 shops here within a 5-mile radius that can work on your car. So I think the difference for choosing Unplugged Performance is like the quality of parts, the level of service, the Tesla expertise. That would be really the main key areas that people would come to us.
Tell me a little bit about your auto experience. Like how, I mean, whether getting into Tesla, because I think you and I have had some conversations, and then you're like, this is like my dream. You literally have told me that. And so, you know, tell me about, you know, your experience, I think back in Arizona to all the way out here.
So super long story. It started actually, I'm from Kansas originally. Okay. Small town, 25,000 people. And I got into cars when I was 14. I got my license when I was 16. I had a Geostorm. I don't know if you remember those cars. Little tiny Geostorm, had like Lotus suspension. You know, a handful of little bolt-on mods I did to it. I did like lowering springs, wheels. I started autocrossing. I got huge into autocrossing when I was 16. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the autocross and Solo 2 headquarters is in Topeka, Kansas. It's about a 2-hour drive from where I grew up. So I used to go to like the autocross nationals. I used to do, you know, the, I'm trying to think what it will, not really Time Attack. It's more like Gymkhana events, but it's like autocross style Gymkhana. Not as hardcore as like the stuff Ken Block used to do, but it's with cones still. So it's like a Solo 2 version of Gymkhana. So yeah, I got into doing a lot of that stuff, and I had a blast doing it. And then that kind of led into, okay, now I want to modify the car more. I want to get more into this. Well, there's only so much you can do with a Geostorm, right? So then I start progressing, you know, getting into more cars. And then I actually got into car audio as well while I was in high school. And I ran a car audio business out of the trunk of my car. So I would get out of class. Yeah, it was like my junior, senior year. I would get out of class, you know, go out to my car and service other classmates' cars in the parking lot. So I had all my gear, all my tools. I would install amps, subs, speakers, decks, you know. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So yeah, I was doing that on the side, and yeah, it just kind of progressed from there. And then I left. I went down to Arizona. I actually went to UTI. I don't know if you're familiar with Universal Technical Institute, but it's basically like a school for learning how to work on cars. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm already going down this path, right? So I can kind of continue and see where it takes me. And so with that, right after I graduated, I ended up at the Nissan Proving Grounds. So what I realized was schools like UTI, Wyotech, they kind of gear you up for going to like a service center at a car dealership. Right. So I didn't really want to go that route. I'm like, well, that's not really exciting to me, you know? And I love working on cars, but I think, you know, from the dealership perspective, it's kind of mundane, it's repairs, you don't really get into like the modifications. So it wasn't really exciting to me, but Nissan called, and I'm like, okay, Nissan sounds really cool. It was the actual proving ground, so I became an engineering technician. Cool. Working at the Nissan Proving Grounds. This is back in 2004. And I was there for 4 years. right up until 2008 when the total auto industry, nosedived into the deep end, right? So yeah, I was there for that. It was horrible, actually. A lot of people got let go.
Yep.
We lost all our benefits. We had to take pay cuts if we were keeping our jobs. It was pretty rough.
Yep.
So I lost a lot of friends in that. And finally in 2008, I called it and I made the choice to leave. Funny thing is, that's where, my auto experience kind of took a turn, and I went to the heavy equipment industry. I don't know if you're familiar with Bobcat.
Yeah, of course.
Bobcat construction equipment, right? So I ended up at the Bobcat Proving Grounds, which is just south of Phoenix, down by Tucson. So I don't know if you're familiar with this either, but Arizona is home to all the proving grounds.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Everybody's there.
Yeah.
Ford, GM, Chrysler, Nissan, Audi, Volkswagen, Bentley, Lamborghini. Some of them all kind of share multiple proving grounds. And we even had Harley Davidson at Nissan there for some time. And ironic as it is, later on, Tesla was using the Nissan proving grounds when the Model S first came out. So, but anyway, I was at Bobcat for the next 8 years, almost 9 years, at their R&D facility in Tucson. And then I left there to come to Tesla.
Well, yeah, I mean, tell us a little bit about, what the past 8 years has been like at Tesla.
Well, it feels like about 20. 8 years at Tesla it's been a wild ride. I can't even begin to explain the amount of things that happened in such a short amount of time. Because 8 years sounds like a long time when you talk about Tesla, but from a career perspective, it's not that long. I mean, it's not unusual. I mean, for people to be at jobs 15, 20 years, and then, okay, now that's considered getting pretty long, but 8 years at Tesla is quite a long time. It got to a point it's very rare to even see my coworkers that have been there as long as me. Went through quite a few people in that time, and when I started, the vehicle test team was about 90 to 100 people. Yep. And now that team, when I left, was in the thousands. I mean, it's literally in the thousands. So it's pretty crazy to go from that little team that we could all fit into a single conference room to what it is now in multiple, 7 buildings. Going now globally, we have teams in the Netherlands, Austin, Berlin, Shanghai. I mean, it's just wild how much growth has happened in just 8 years. And when I first started, Model X had just gone into production. So I kind of came into only S and X being built. The biggest R&D challenges at the time were trying to get Model X quality issues worked out.
Yeah, the Falcon Wing doors and stuff.
Falcon Wing doors. Just all those things, right?
Yep.
That's pretty typical of any new vehicle program where, you develop a new vehicle and you have to work out the kinks. Especially when you're at breakneck speed like Tesla and you launch a vehicle a year after showing it off versus a traditional auto company like Nissan, it takes years.
Yeah.
5-6 years of development before a car rolls off the assembly line. Whereas here, I mean, you can see Tesla in Shanghai, for example, went from a swamp to a factory producing cars in 10 months. Completely unheard of in the automotive industry. And I feel like it's really underappreciated.
Yeah.
I think 100%. A lot of people, I think especially with social media and the current trends, people expect things much quicker than what it really should be. And I think a lot of this goes underappreciated because from an engineering standpoint, and even a construction perspective, that was unheard of. To see a factory go up in 10 months. So I think it demonstrates the Tesla initiative and Tesla innovation.
Yep.
And that willingness to bring all these teams together just to get shit done.
Yep.
It's pretty crazy.
So, and go a little bit into what did you actually do there? And then also too, what are some of your fondest memories?
Sure. So I managed lab operations. So it was basically an R&D role where I oversaw the operations of R&D labs. Started out as one lab, and then it grew to several buildings. I also managed the test track behind the factory.
Oh man, I wish I knew you 2 years ago. I'd be hey, I want to see the semi going around or this.
Yeah, it's
that's cool.
That was probably the funnest part of my job because I was also responsible for test track training of employees to make sure they're trained. So I had a training program.
That's cool.
I managed all the badge access. I managed all the VIP events. I used to take people in rides quite often. And that's something I miss a lot. And actually, one of the things I really enjoyed was working with the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yep.
And so some of these kids would come, they'd get a tour of the factory, and then I would actually surprise them and pick them up. Well, in the P100D back then, and also the Plaid most recently.
Yep.
Pick them up in front of the factory, and they had no idea, what was happening, and then take them out on the test track.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was just like, mind blown experience.
Yeah.
And then I would take them to Cato, the test lab just down the street, and give them the full tour of the lab and explain everything that's going on.
That's cool.
Fortunately, in my role, I was kind of a one-man show in a lot of ways. Because in the early days, we didn't have a lot of people to do all these different jobs. So at Tesla, the expectation, you almost have to wear many hats, right?
Yeah.
So, but honestly, it really helps you grow and develop. And like, you'll learn how to do things you never anticipated knowing how to do.
Yep.
Like acquiring equipment for most of the labs. I did a lot of planning for construction and building out lab spaces. Like all the vehicle workshops, I purchased all the equipment, had all the equipment installed. And
cool.
Worked with a ton of vendors and suppliers and doing a lot of purchasing. And then once everything's installed, figuring out how are things going to work, what's going to be the flow in this lab, and what are the safety procedures, and getting EH&S team involved, and actually writing the procedures. And so it's kind of a start to finish process. I guess you could think of it as like I'm almost like the landlord, and like the people doing the testing is like the tenant, so to speak, right? So it's about giving them all the tools they need to be successful.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
In their testing roles, yeah. So
what is probably, so you kind of talked a little bit about like some fond memories. What is some like of harder projects that maybe that just kind of like you literally had to pull hair out? I mean,
oh man, I've got a good one. So we were originally in the factory, kind of right next to SX line. It's actually called Door 3. So we used to be right there. That's where our R&D lab was, right next to the, it was SX end of line. So we used to crash cars and everything. We do crash testing right next to like where S and X were rolling off the assembly line. Yeah, it was pretty comical.
Like crashing and it's...
we'd blast an air horn, and then there was a little yellow flashing light. So the techs on the other side of the wall knew when the light flashed, they better be careful and watch. A car might come through the wall.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful, and then sure enough, you'd hear it go down and then crash into a barrier, and then, collect all the data and hope the car didn't, have a thermal event in the middle of the factory. And yeah, it was pretty exciting. But, you have to be scrappy.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's another key touch point is that, there's Tesla scrappiness, but, that's what got it done.
Yeah.
It got it done. You talk about being able to rub two pennies together and make $1 million. Like, Tesla did it every day. And every one of those employees, like, we all, like, teamed up together, didn't care what our jobs were. We didn't care about job titles. We definitely didn't care about money.
Yeah.
At that point, we thought the company was going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
It was really about just showing everybody it could be done.
Yeah.
So that really is what kind of brought us all together to just get it done,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges was then getting that lab moved out of the factory down the street to another building right in the middle of Model 3. We also couldn't stop the SX line. So we had to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this line moved out of the factory, whereas the only roll-up door is through the line? Cut a hole in the building.
Oh, seriously?
Cut a hole in the building. So we cut a 25... Yeah. So I literally...
Can't make this up.
No, I worked with the facilities team, and we coordinated getting like a 25-foot hole cut in the front of the factory and brought it all out of the front of the factory into the parking lot and transported it on trucks down the street and moved it into Cato.
Wow.
And it had to be little by little. You couldn't do it all in one shot because we're testing Model 3.
Yeah.
So we had like vehicle lifts, environmental chambers, various testing equipment. We even had like the airbag chamber. We were doing like, the Takata airbag deployments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we couldn't move all that at once. We had to do it in like groupings, right? Like sections, little by little. And then when we moved something and decommission it, we'd have to recommission it over there so they could resume testing there so we can decommission the rest of the equipment. And then over there, there's no power. So we had to rent generators. We had a trailer with like process cooling water. Like, it was just insane.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, it was insane. And Yeah, I mean, it all happened fairly quickly. So
Yeah.
the whole went in the building. Stuff started moving out within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it's like usually it would take some time.
So
The funny thing that actually happened with that, probably about 3 weeks later, Elon saw it and he's like, "Hey, who cut a hole in the front of the factory? What was that? What's that there for? Can somebody please, fix the hole in the building?" And like, yeah, they had to do that to move out the lab so it wouldn't stop production. Oh, okay, cool. just fix it, put it back. Yeah. So it's a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
So, so you've had a lot of experience, personal experience, being a fanboy of just like modifying your car, getting in and like literally running a shop out of the back of your car, to working at Nissan, even, latest, working at Tesla and being very scrappy. How have, specifically Tesla, your time there, what are you bringing into Unplugged Fremont? What are those principles that you want to bring from your time there into like what you're doing here in Fremont?
I think the biggest thing is now, I supported the teams at Tesla and now I feel like I get to support from the customer side. Yeah, I could have probably went into like the service team and done something similar, but that's still like on Tesla's time, right? So I feel like from here, now that I'm out of Tesla, I can support on a different side. Yeah. And I can try and offer like the best knowledge, the best quality that I possibly can to like customers and enthusiasts that also share a lot of my same passion. But also now I get to express my passion for cars while still remaining like linked to Tesla.
Yeah. That's cool.
I mean, to be honest, I think if Tesla would have opened up a motorsports division, I probably would have been all over it.
Yeah.
Then that might be different. But at least here, I think we're kind of filling in the gap for the motorsports side of Tesla. It's actually really difficult for a manufacturer to have a motorsports program. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
I can't even emphasize how expensive that is. I saw it at Nissan. I mean, the amount of money they pour into the race team and the development of those cars, the testing of those cars, even the drivers, and transporting them all over the world. It's a huge cost.
Yeah.
And I think in Tesla's current growth, that's not really on the radar. I think maybe down the line in the future, I think so.
Yep.
I think the potential is there. But I think where I see them currently, it's just not on the list right now. It's not on the list of priorities.
Yeah, I had the experience the past couple weeks to actually go and to the Michelin Laguna Seca and see their just tire research and development that they're all doing literally at Laguna Seca and Monterey. So I can only imagine the type of cost, because I mean, when they sponsor they're literally every tire that's going on the cars is Michelin, but it's and I saw pretty much every brand there, but yeah, I mean, obviously was walking around with the Tesla shirt, so it was just interesting to see every brand there. But you brought up a lot of really good points, and it seems like you have a lot of amazing experience to now bring to the Fremont area. What are you most excited about in this upcoming year of the launch of Unplugged Performance Fremont?
I think the most exciting thing for me is being able to put my touch on cars. I think, for me, that's exciting.
Yep.
Especially when, I have a car come in, we finish it up, and it's like the customer's happy, they're thrilled, they love the way it feels and drives. Like, for me, that's exciting. Like, knowing, hey, that's really cool, I got to play a part in that.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. Now, for myself personally, I definitely do want to get back into motorsports. I do want to get some track time. It's been a while. So, for the future at least, I think for the future of Unplugged Fremont, in my future, I think you can definitely expect some track time in the future.
Awesome.
Potential track car build. We'll see where it goes. Yeah. I don't know, some surprises to come, but we'll see what happens.
Well, awesome. Derek, thank you so much for your time. I mean, the area needs more shops like this. And, I'm really, I've known personally, I was excited to meet Ben, and then through Ben, literally met you. I think it's maybe within a couple of months. I think we've only known each other, right? It's been pretty quick. And I feel like I've seen you a lot in the past couple of months and weeks. And then we're obviously going to be doing an event with you pretty soon coming up. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be here. If you live in the Bay Area or even in the surrounding areas, maybe if you're up in Sacramento or Redding, really Northern California, come check out Unplugged Performance Fremont. We're going to put their information in the description or a link to their Facebook page or also their address so you can get connected. But make sure you give Derek a call for anything that you want to do to your Tesla and really taking it to the next level, or just basic things like an alignment or potentially some other services as well. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very welcome. And like you said, the door is always open. Give me a call. You're free to come and visit. You can walk in, or even if you just have a question. I do carry a lot of random Tesla knowledge. So, if any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Probably one of my favorite things is, more than his Tesla knowledge, is all of the memorabilia around here. You should just come and walk the shop and he'll drop some pretty insane knowledge. So we're going to show you some clips, with some B-roll and stuff like that of the shop. And so come check them out. It is a really special shop. And I'm really excited for what Unplugged Performance Fremont is going to do for Tesla owners in the Bay Area. So thank you again, Derek, for your time. Welcome. Really excited about what the shop is going to do here. We'll see you guys next time.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.